Shouting Men Podcast. It's the Shouting Men Podcast. It's the Shouting Men Podcast. It's the Shouting Men Podcast. Reviews, previews, stories old and new. A podcast about the Gills, just for you. Dedicated to the past, present and future too. It's the Shouting Men Podcast, go grab a brew. It's the Shouting Men Podcast. It's the Shouting Men Podcast. It's the Shouting Men Podcast. It's the Shouting Men Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Shouting Men Podcast. Thank you for joining us on our first ever live show. Joining me today, we have my new co-host, Matt. And with us are our special guests today. You'll see him at every Gills game, home and away. He's a regular fixture. It's Eddie Allcorn.
Hiya.
And also former Gills coach Darren Hare. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Matt? Matt?
It looks like I've got some internet bugs because my internet crashed for about 2 seconds there, so I missed all of that apart from saying hello there.
Well, I've just literally I've introduced Darren, I've introduced Eddie. We're over to you, mate.
Well, let's hope my internet doesn't go down anymore. So, well, guys, look. Firstly, we are thrilled to welcome from the world of football management and development, Darren Hare. Starting his career in the youth teams of Gillingham and Dover, he made a significant impact in Kent's non-league scene. As the leading goal scorer of Ashford Town for 2 seasons, he rose through the ranks at Gillingham, eventually becoming head of in 2004. He also managed teams like Hastings United and taking on coaching roles at Dover Athletic and Faversham Town. He is a devoted family man, married to Alison, a proud father of 3, including his son Josh, who obviously has recently been celebrating hard with Boreham Wood. And joining him, we have Eddie Allcorn, a true embodiment of football fandom. Yes, a lifelong Gillingham supporter since the age of 9. Eddie attended his first Gillingham game in April of 1978. He has dedicated his life to following his beloved club around the UK ever since, and his passion even extends beyond the club loyalty to the England national team, having spent over £15,000 supporting the 3 Lions across Europe, including 7 Euros and 3 World Cups. He writes 2 columns for the Gillingham Matchday programme and travels extensively following the team through both exhilarating victories and, especially this year, challenging defeats. With over 4,000 matches under his belt, Eddie brings the same enthusiasm for football that he has for Gillingham to every game he attends. Guys, welcome both to the show. How are you both doing?
Oh yeah, that was a scarily big build-up.
Yeah, it was.
Give you the
I'm sure I recognise my Ford Cortina outside the front of the Redfern Avenue stand on one of those old pictures. Took me back a few years, that.
You see, I'm sure Eddie also remembers the old social club. I used to love popping in there after a game when I was younger.
Oh yeah, we didn't tend to go in the social club. It wasn't that big, and because I live in Canterbury,
right, well, look,
we were often getting a train home and stuff like that, or a car. But yeah.
So it looks like I'm definitely having an internet bug, so I'm going to get that sorted whilst we jump on to our questions. Look, I'm going to jump straight in. Darren, obviously, you're on here. You were a big part of the Gills for quite a few years, especially in the youth development squad. So I've got to ask you, who was the best player that you had that came up whilst you were head of the youth development team?
Well, to be honest, I think that's quite a difficult question. I think there's two or three. Very difficult for me to pick one. And it's interesting to see how they go on. So, I mean, I think Ryan Bertrand's probably the first one that everyone will remember. You won't have seen him play for the first team at Gills, unfortunately, because Chelsea nicked him from us when he was a 15-year-old. But he went on eventually to play for Chelsea, play for Southampton, had a long career, and actually got an England cap. So I think that's one little feather in our cap. He was with the club's youth development programme from the age of 8 through to the age of 15. Another one is Matty Jarvis, who I think is starting to get a little bit into media now. See a lot more of him in certain aspects. And we picked Matty up, ironically, I think the day that he got let go by Millwall. Our scout back in the day, Bernie Dillon, was in the car park at the New Den and had a chat with the parents. And luckily, for Matt, he came down, different environment for him totally, but was allowed to grow, allowed to develop, really enjoyed his time in the youth team. And obviously Hesse gave him his debut, and we all look back on what Matt's achieved, again, with pride. He also got an England cap. But there's others, obviously Daki, great lad to work with. Again, he came to us at the age of 14.
I believe, Eddie, I'm sure you were probably at that game.
Well, the England game, yeah. Well, when Matt Jarvis came on at half time, yeah, I was in a group of about 4 Gillingham fans, and I think we were the most excited people in the stadium for quite an average 1-1 draw in a friendly, I think it was. But yeah, no, we were going, look, it's Matty Jarvis. So yeah. It was fantastic to be there.
I think when you're a youth coach, and I think I'd speak to everybody that's involved or has been involved with Gillingham's youth setup over the years, seeing a young player progress and do that well and reach those levels is, a real proud moment. So it's nice to know you played a tiny part on that player's journey. And to say, for me, it was just about a change of environment for Matt. And, we were lucky enough to see him progress. So, and obviously Andy Crofts is another one. I mean, I first worked with Andy when he was about 10, believe it or not. I wasn't at Gills at the time. I was just helping out at the Chelsea Centre of Excellence, and he was with Chelsea. Didn't get offered anything when he was 16. And I remember when I first turned up at the Gills back in 99, 2000, I think it was, Brains was the youth coach. Simon Ratcliffe was the head of youth. I turned up. My first role there was football and the community officer. And I remember saying to the lads, look, can we get this young fella in? He's a great player. And he came in. He did great. Kevin loved him. And he went on to be an international as well. And he's doing fantastically well now. Down with Brighton, is he? Hertzler's right-hand man, or I think he's first team coach, or he's doing really well down at Brighton. So fair play to him. Another good player, and another lad that got a knockback, but had the desire, the attitude to want to prove people wrong. And, he's another proud person that, I'm really pleased I had a chance in helping to develop.
I'm going to, if you don't mind, quickly ask you then, carry on a question, because you obviously did mention it. You are working with a lot of these young players, and obviously sort of being a family man, and did that influence your coaching and sort of your mentoring towards the young players? Because obviously you would have had, Joshua, and obviously growing up and quite young, and I'm guessing you sort of took a lot of these players under your wing almost.
Well, I think to be honest, it's about the environment you create in the youth academy. It's not just me. I mean, there's so many staff that work with these players, the individual age group coaches, obviously. We call them the development phase coaches. So we used to have a youth development phase. Initially, when I went in there, Brian Ball is now the existing academy manager. He's been at Gills, absolute legend for developing youth at the club now. He's been there, I don't know how many years, must be 30 years. He first came in, worked with the youngsters, then started to work with the older ones, and then he was like quite pivotal. In fact, very pivotal in us getting our academy category 3 status. Now it's people like that, him, others, Robert Peck, who's still at the club working with the youngsters. It's creating that environment. So when you're an academy manager or you're head of youth, you kind of just oversee that. And yeah, you know, when they get to a certain age, you then become more important when it comes to the decision-making process. But actually, you know, the contact with the players, the time spent with the parents, the support mechanisms, that comes from your staff. And, you know, I'm very lucky, and I know Brian's very lucky to have some very good staff working for him.
I'd like to add that the best Gillingham player I've ever seen was when Steve Bruce came through, and he immediately came straight to the first team as like a gangly 18-year-old, and he was there. He was in the team, and he looked a natural, an absolute star from the moment he got in the team. There was no like bedding in process. He looked like he'd been there 2 years after 5 games, and he had a fantastic 6-7 years at Gillingham. Remember him breaking his leg in a revenge attack on someone else in a very feisty match. And obviously he broke his nose on multiple occasions and stuff like that. But he was just class from the very start. And so we all followed his career after he left Gillingham, went to Norwich and then Man U. And it's disappointing he never played one full game for England, because he certainly deserved it. But there were lots of other decent centre-backs at the time. But he's the one who stands out as like, you just went, wow, immediately. Whilst when Tony Cascarino arrived at the club, obviously there wasn't youth quite. He came from Crockenhill, but he was only 17, 18. He was very raw, and it took time for him to develop into the player he was by the end. And so, as you can imagine, some Gillingham fans were a bit impatient with him, because he wasn't very good at one-on-ones with goalkeepers and things. And he could miss as many as he scored, but he was fantastic in the air. And once we got used to playing down the wings, lofting the ball into the middle, from Robinson or Cochrane or whoever it was crossing the ball in, he was the best Gillingham player I've ever seen in the air. And again, obviously went on to have a pretty stellar career. A very surreal moment. I saw him play for Marseille once. I didn't expect to see an ex-Gillingham player do that.
No, definitely not. I was lucky enough to have.
Do you know? I've got.
Go on, Matt. Sorry.
Go on, Darren. Go on.
I was just about to say I was lucky enough to have a season.
I was just going to say
at Gillingham with Tony Cascarino and under Keith Peacock. Obviously, very difficult for youngsters because there was only one sub back then. So if you were lucky enough to get on the bench as a youngster, then obviously you felt a little bit more involved. But much smaller squad. I was only 18 at the time. I think I went out on loan to Dover to get some games, but never really got a chance. Well, if I'm perfectly honest, probably wasn't ready. But yeah, enjoyed the finishing sessions on the pitch with Cass and Dave Shearer. No, it was good. And Mark Weatherly, I've got a long-standing respect for that gentleman. He really looked after me.
I mean, Shearer was a real fox in the box. I mean,
so I just wanted to quickly say, Kirrien's internet dropped out. Oh, no, he's back. If he said if it might go again. So, we're all having internet. This is what you get for going live for the first time. Look, Eddie, I've got to ask. I mean, because obviously you spoke so passionately there about Steve Bruce and obviously everything, but you've had this obviously lifelong devotion to Gillingham Football Club, but how's it evolved over the years? Because I mean, obviously 4,000 games. I mean, are you literally
that's all games? That's 4,000 games for everything, not Gillingham. Gillingham's about. I wouldn't be old enough to do 4,000 games. About 2,200 Gillingham games, and then 163 England games, and then I go to neutral non-league stuff and stuff in London and European stuff. And so, yeah. So I'm very glad I started writing it down when I was 10 years old, right from the off. I was that sort of child. So it began, my best friend at school, Julian, he was an Arsenal fan. Now I got into football when I was 9, from not really following it to being obsessed with it in the space of like 3 months. And the first match of the day I saw Tottenham beat Bristol Rovers 9-0, and I thought, oh, this is great. Anyway, my mate used to get taken up with his older brother to Arsenal, so in March 78, we went to Arsenal West Brom. To date this, Malcolm McDonald got a hat-trick, Willie Young scored, you had people like Cyril Regis playing, and Laurie Cunningham for West Brom. It was as quote, 3 degrees, shows how things change, with Brendan Batson. Then a month later, I went to Tottenham, who were in the 2nd division. Again, they had a 1-year adventure there against Bolton. And then third game was Gillingham against Sheffield Wednesday. Because it's no playoffs then, season petering out, because we've been in the mix. We ended up coming 7th. We beat Sheffield Wednesday 2-1. Danny Westwood, Charlie Young scored. And it comes to the summer holidays, and I think, well, I've got to pick. I've got to pick either Arsenal, Tottenham, or Gillingham. And my dad was willing to take me up to London, 4 or 5 times a year to see a game in London. So he'd still say he'd do that. But his friend who used to drive to Gillingham, I could do a game every fortnight. Well, obviously, when you're 9 or 10, it's all brilliant anyway. So I picked quantity over quality, shall we say, and never looked back. So that's how I became a Gillingham fan, despite growing up in Canterbury with no family connection to Medway or the club previously.
Wow, yeah. So, I mean, obviously, you've obviously been to... Oh, you're back. You've got it working.
Hey. I've got it working.
I mean, obviously, you've spent, £15,000 going all over the world. But I've got to ask, can you share with us your most memorable match you've attended, either whether it's for Gillingham or in the national team, or even if it's a completely different stadium? What match have you walked out going, wow, what an experience?
You have to split it into categories, really. There's Gillingham and then there's England. I mean, neutral games I've seen some amazing ones too, but the things that you support make it more emotionally draining or more emotionally, you're completely entranced by it. So, I mean, a lot of people my age will mention the Sunderland away game in the playoffs in 1987, which we lost after extra time. But obviously, we won the first game 3-2. This is the playoff semi-final against Sunderland. We were 2-2 in the last minute. Gary Bennett equalised with a looping header. Roker Park went absolutely bonkers, huge roar, and we snuck through in extra time with a 4-3. The game had everything, missed penalties, just like bundled in goals, last minute drama, end to end on a mud heap, both sides going for it non-stop. And there were about, 1,500 Gillingham fans there, and easily another 1,000 Newcastle fans who turned up to watch us relegate Sunderland, because it was the first year of the playoffs. And you had teams trying to get promoted and one team trying to avoid relegation. And so obviously we played Sunderland, and we then got through to the finals to play Swindon, but I mean, it relegated them. I mean, the crowd was 25,000 back when, crowds were half what they are nowadays. And so that was a really huge thing for us as well. But it was just the whole madcap game of just the swings and roundabouts. We scored so early on, they scored so late. And it was the first year of these newfangled playoffs, and no one quite knew what to expect. When we left pre-sealed, coming out the ground after we won 3-2, I laughingly said, there's no chance we're going to win on away goals now, because Sunderland just scored 2 away goals. But it transpired we had. Other amazing games. We played Brentford in the FA Cup, and we were 3-1 down with 11 minutes to go and won 5-3. That was amazing. The 5-0 win at Burnley when Super Pub got all 5, which is one of the maddest away days ever. It's back when we used to have group travel, and there's about 60 of us on the train. And most of us ended up doing the conga, the length of the train, chanting about Super Pub scoring 5 goals. And then obviously for Gillingham fans, getting promoted is obviously amazing. And the promised land was the Championship. And so after the Man City game, which is amazing to be at anyway, just beating Wigan and Tomo's moment to nod it in is best moment of my life. So if you talk about Gillingham, that is the best moment of my life, full stop. If you talk about England,
and of course,
most memorable would be Euro 96. I was at the Scotland game when Gascoigne flicked over Hendry and banged it in for 2-0. I was at the Holland 4-1. That's the best individual performance we've seen by an England team. More recently, the tournaments, Euro 20/21, the 2-0 win over Germany, post or as we were coming out of COVID, and the just vibrant release of tension and pressure at that moment when we made it 2-0. I mean, people were just like crying. It was awesome. And then I was very, very lucky to go to the whole of the last Euros, partly because I had an opportunity, but secondly because I had family who used to live in Germany. I could stay with part of it. I had friends who live in Belgium we could stay with as well. And because where I was on the England travel ladder of caps meant I got the cheapest ticket possible. So for the group games, it was like €30. Same price as going to watch us lose to Crew on a Tuesday night. And so when Ollie Watkins scored that goal in the semi-final at Dortmund, that's the second best moment of my life. And walking up to the ground, it wasn't the game, we lost to Spain, but walking up to the stadium in Berlin before the Euro final there was the stuff of dreams. Tens and tens of thousands of England fans pinching themselves because not only were we in a final overseas for the first time in our history, but it was in Berlin and we were there and we had tickets and it was just a glorious evening. Obviously didn't quite work out, but what a roller coaster. So, obviously you get mad little games too. Gillingham 5, Hereford 4. When we 2-0 down, back to 2-0, 4-2 down, back to 4-all. They missed the last minute penalty, and then we won 5-4. That's the maddest, just little game of Gills. Just a random Tuesday night that went bonkers. And obviously I was at the 10-0 against Man City, against Chesterfield. So.
Football is a crazy old game. Talking about being a crazy old game, Darren, you obviously you had the opportunity to manage the Gills. Let's put it in a group of 4. Explain that in 2004, because obviously, Andy Hessenthaler was in charge up until mid-November, and he decided to step away from the club. And instead of bringing in one coach, we think let's get to 4.
It's two instances. First one was when they was in the Championship and Andy decided to step down, or him and the chairman decided between them that was the best option for Andy. And I sort of kind of took the team with big Ewan Roberts. Remember Ewan Roberts? So me and him took the team away at Cardiff. So it was a great experience for me because it was the first time I've ever sat in front of a press conference and all that sort of stuff. But we took the team for that day. It was chairman was very quick to bring another manager in Stan Turnan, who came in sort of kind of straight after that to take over from Andy. So they weren't easy times because obviously we'd had 3 really good years up to that point of success. Done more than hold our own in the Championship, highest level ever position, etc., etc. Had some great players in the building, and it then became a fight for safety. Unfortunately, we went away to Notts Forest, I think, the last game, and couldn't quite manage to stay up. But and then we had another instance, obviously, in 2015 with I think it was New Year's Eve. I got a call off the chairman. And basically said, Darren, he said, Peter and I have agreed to part ways. It's Peter Taylor. You need to sort the team out for tomorrow. And I'm like, right, okay. So drove down the training ground, saw Hesse. Obviously, Hesse, really, really good friends, very close friends with Peter, and said, look, I'm here to help, but I don't want to be involved. I don't want to be fronting this. Your chairman's asked you, you go and do it. So, sat down for a period, thought about it, looked at who we had in the building. Obviously, you had myself, Pato, Stevie Lovell, and Andy. And we had 3 teams. We had the first team, obviously, which were at the time in the bottom 4. We had the under 21s, the B team, development squad, whatever you want to call them, and we had the under 18 team. So I just thought, you know what? Let's manage all of those 3 teams, all of us, together, and that's basically what we did. So I shared responsibility across everybody. I mean, Steve was more than happy and confident enough to do a lot of the media stuff. I did a little bits of that as well. Andy obviously got involved with picking the team, the tactics, the training, all that sort of stuff, where we literally rotated things around. And whether it was better, more luck than judgment, I don't know. But we went on a little bit of a run, and before time, the chairman was involving us in the recruitment process of the new manager. And I remember we playing. We had to stay down sort of Cheltenham with Gloucester way. I'm not exactly sure where it was, but we were playing against Walsall at the weekend, and also we had a semi-final of, I'm not sure what the English Football League Cup was called back then, but it was against Bristol City. We lost that, unfortunately. Went up to Walsall, and I think we drew that game. But it was that weekend that we all interviewed Justin. And obviously I came in then, and Justin came in, obviously brought his own stuff in, and that's when the Gang of 4 kind of stepped down. So we were known a little bit as the Gang of 4, and it was that was probably the best 6 weeks of my life, that period, because I got so many positive experiences from being involved with the first team. Obviously, we had a slight resurgence. We managed to win a few games, and I mean, I really enjoyed that. And obviously, then you go back and you think, right, I've got to go back into the old job that I did. So I had a taste of that, and I thought, well, I'd like to be there. And Steve had a taste of it as well. I thought, I definitely want to be there. And obviously, a position became available, and he took that with Justin. So I then had to find a new youth team coach to come in and work within the academy, which was fine. And at the end of the day, that's what we're there for. To promote players as also promote your staff, and Steve was more than capable to go and support on in those situations. So more involvement then, because that Gang of 4 sort of kind of went on because the chairman thought, well, hang on a minute, we're winning games here. And I think he actually did say in Kent Online, I think, at the moment he appointed Justin, saying he did think about sticking with us till the end of the season. But you'd have to check with him on that. But that were good memories. Obviously, it's never nice when you lose a manager, and Pete was a fantastic coach. I'm lucky enough to work with him in his previous spell, his very first spell, 1999. At the Wigan game, and watching him work, and also when I had a little spell at Palace in between 2 spells at Gills, and he turned up as manager there as well. So I've been lucky to see, he's a very, very, very good coach indeed. So, but sometimes things don't work out on the pitch, and a change can be as good as a rest. So it certainly weren't anything magic that we did. It just happened.
You mentioned Peter Taylor there, who will always be remembered as the man who gave David Beckham the captaincy for the first time in that one game. But I've got to ask you, because obviously you did have a chance to work briefly, obviously, with Justin Edinburgh. I've got to ask, what was he like as a man manager, especially with and the head coach of the club? Well,
I mean, listen, he'd had extremely good success. Where he'd been before, and he came into Gills, and the first thing he said when he came in is, like, I'm not going to change anything. Everything's moving in the right direction, so I just want to keep things going and have a good look at what I've got from now till the end of the season, which is pretty much what he did. Didn't really get too involved with the academy at that point, and then obviously the next season doing great, doing really, really well. And I thought we got on really well with the players. I thought, he had some good staff in. Obviously, he had Steve in with him, and another coach. Can't remember Dave. Can't think of his surname now. But good coaches, and he was great with the players. So, and wanted to promote the youth, wanted to get the boys involved, wanted to come down and have a look. And I think for the first time we tried something there where we offered trials to like 19-year-olds to come in and get a development contract. So like become a pro. Wouldn't have been much money, but the opportunity to come in full time for a year. And he supported that. We advertised it. We got great interest in that, and we held trials down at Beechings Cross, and we ended up bringing a player in on the back of that. So he was very supportive of things like that. And obviously, there was no one more shocked than me when I heard about what happened to him, which was very, very sad indeed, because he had a huge career in management ahead of him. Obviously he left Gills, but he got promotion at Leyton Orient. I think there were going to be more promotions for him.
Absolutely, one of I still say one of the Gillingham's best ever coaches we've had, and unfortunately we are unable to see his full potential. But I think you're right. I think he would have been in the Premier League now, probably managing one of the big six, because he was that good of a coach. Look, let's just jump on, obviously, we're talking to have a little chat about the 24-25 season that has just passed. And Eddie, with all the hype, with all the build-up, the sleeping dragon, he's definitely hit that a snooze button quite a few times this season. But, I mean, compared to last season, what are the performances been like? What's the reaction been like from the crowds when you've been in them? What's the general overall thought of the fans now that this season has finally come to an end?
Well, I can only sort of speak for myself and maybe the people I watch with, but I would say you could split the season into 3 chunks, really. The initial chunk, where, the first maybe dozen games, well, obviously we got off to a flyer, although now if you look at the fixtures that we fulfilled, 3 of our first 6 wins against the 3 sides that came in the bottom 3. So maybe that we got a bit overexcited beating Carlisle and Morecambe and Tranmere. And so obviously got off to a great start. And that first bit of the season peaked with a really cracking 1-0 win at Notts County, which had all the stuff you want to see from a team trying to get promoted. The togetherness, the blocking, the tackles, the just the solidity, the passion. And then for whatever reason, the wheels fell off, and it's really hard to put your finger on exactly what happened. And we don't know what happened behind the scenes, but it felt like we had a lot of injuries, and then confidence went, and then I don't think we were using some of the players in their natural positions. And it all just got into a downward spiral. And I felt the then manager wasn't sure how to get us out of that. And then we got to the point where the crowd almost turned on some of the players. I would say the low point of that was the 2 games against Bromley. We only lost 2-1 away, but that was, I know it depends if you think Bromley's in Kent or not, but it was a local derby, if not a Kentish derby. And we were pretty gutless that day, and we had a very good view of it standing along the side of the pitch. And then the home game was just a catastrophe. I think Nevitt's penalties only just re-entered the Earth's atmosphere. And you're genuinely thinking, I can't see us winning another game very easily, So we muddle along a bit further. Obviously, we then bring in Coleman, and we started to turn the corner, and I think there were a couple of sliding doors moments for him, because we just went through this period of improved displays and a whole string of referees who are not of this world. Seriously, some of the decisions that went against us were comical. Now, you can moan about decisions and referees. You never want to be a referee. It's a tough job. But some of the decisions were mind-boggling. Now, if you're a brilliant team scoring 4 goals a game, it doesn't really matter. But when we're binary and only score 1 goal at best, big decisions made big differences to our results. So I felt he got the fluffy end of some really bonkers decisions. So therefore, he sort of slipped out of the equation. However, I did feel like we turned the corner, even though a lot of people were going, well, we're only drawing games 1-1. It was more the manner of the performance. And then obviously we got brought in Ainsworth, and well, just before that, we'd already stopped. We had a little run of 3 games unbeaten, and he's come in and we've had 9. And what shocked me was that the improvement in performance from some players I had mentally given up on was extraordinary. I mean, I'd sort of given up on Johnny Williams. I'd sort of given up on 3 or 4 players who suddenly had a new lease of life, whether it was Rowe or whoever. And suddenly they're playing like how we imagined they would and how we hoped they would. And I know the last 12 games was 4 wins, 8 draws, but it was more the performance rather than the scores. We're still binary, not scoring more than 1 goal very often, or just once. But we were making more chances. We were looking more direct. And I'll be honest, Gillingham fans hate tippy-tappy football. They despise it. If you're Barcelona with the best players in the world, then it can be elegant and quiet and very effective, obviously. If you're in the 4th division and half your team aren't really suited to playing like that anyway, the last thing you want to do is sideways pass after sideways pass after sideways pass, because then the passing just gets slightly worse and worse, and then we have to hoof it anyway. So I feel that the fact that we look like we're going to have 2 up front, I mean, poor old Nevitt tries hard, but he needs service and someone with him up front. And we needed 4 at the back, and he's quite flexible. He's got 4 at the back some of the time, and 2 up front, and we're just more direct. We make more chances. We're more attacking. There's more intent. The passion has come back. Now, does that mean we're going to be brilliant next season? Don't know. See who we sign, but even people like that, suddenly the performance has had up to level. Now, shame on some of the players for not doing that earlier in the season under a different manager. I would say they don't get a free ride from me on that, because even if you've got professional pride, even if you don't agree with it, if you've fallen out with the manager or you don't like the tactics, you still bloody put your effort in. And let's just say some of the games at some points they were booed off, and I don't tend to boo them. I just storm off in a huff and fold my flag up and go home quietly. But I could understand why they got dogs abuse from, I reckon, half a dozen games this season fell very short of what is bottom line expected from a League 2 player. We understand errors and mistakes. We never forgive lack of effort and passion and desire, because there's 6,000 people in the crowd who would do anything almost to play for the team. They're not good enough to do it, but what I mean is they would be so motivated to do everything they could. So anyway, it's sort of it means 2 things: a wasted season, but also hope for the future, and hopefully we can get momentum into next season, because momentum's a big thing. It's a lovely thing in football. A bit like when we had the Gang of 4.
So, Darren, thanks for coming back then and helping Gareth out.
Yeah, interesting to hear what you said there, Eddie. I mean, there's an old saying in football that the players do get you the sack. So, I mean, I haven't seen too many Gills games, so I've seen a lot of replays and lots of highlights. But, I mean, looks like you got the right man in now, doesn't it? At the end of the day, he's proven, and I think that I'm excited to see what happens next season for Gills.
Sorry, I pressed the wrong button.
Darren, I'd absolutely. Oh, yeah, go on. We'll get this coming up in a minute, but Darren, I'd love to ask you this question, because I've asked it to a couple of managers so far of Gillingham Football Club, and they've given, I would say, mediocre responses. So, as the fact that you've been embedded in Gills, let's hope you all know this. What is a Gillingham player? What should characteristics should a Gillingham player possess?
Well, I've gone dark now. Look, that's the powers of Billy. Just stand up.
Oh, it's gone dark.
Yeah, I've gone dark because the light's gone off.
Oh,
that's better.
Is it motion censored? Hang on, there you go.
It's not rocket science. I mean, Eddie muted it a little bit earlier on when he said that there is certainly a culture at the football club, and whenever a young player comes in, even from the age of 8 years of age, we try to embed that culture in there. You know, nothing is ever achieved without hard work. And, you know, we try to promote that throughout their development, but especially when they come in the building and they're 16.
Sorry, Darren, we've lost you a little bit, mate.
Having the right character, being able to, you know, keep going when the chips are down, play with confidence, play with belief, you know, and it's players like, when you think about Daki, you know, when he was sort of 17, 18, and you're thinking, like, this kid's got a chance. You know, there was a few games I had to sub him when he was a youth team player, because he got himself so embroiled in the game, so passionate about the game, so wanted to win that you could see the mist falling down, the red mist starting to down. I used to have to just drag him off, sub him off, and let him have a walk around the training ground, because I obviously didn't want to get him sent off. But, you know, kind of, you can't teach kids that. That's kind of got to be in there. Do you know what I mean? That sort of comes from a little bit of genetics, bit of their upbringing, all that sort of stuff. It's very difficult to give a kid desire and passion and teach that to them. You can talk to them about it till the cows come home, but if it's not in their personality, 9 times out of 10, very rarely you'll get it out of them. And you see that with a lot of players. You know, I've seen a lot of players with unbelievable amounts of talent and physicality and like pace and power, that because they haven't had the right attitude or the right application, are just fallen by the wayside. And yeah, I think about Crofty. Andy Croft's never the quickest player. Okay, in fact, we weren't sure what his best position were. We didn't know whether he's a midfield player or number 10 or a centre forward or a false 9. We didn't know. But that kid, if ever I needed to speak to him when he was around the building, I knew where to go, and that was the gym. Because he was in there, he was working his socks off to try and be the best player he could be. And that's all you can ask of. So if you're asking me what makes a young player, then it's you've got to make the sacrifices, you've got to put the effort in, and you've got to go the extra mile. And certainly when you pull that shirt on and that badge is close to your heart, that has got to be very, very clearly evident out on that pitch.
I'd like to add something to that.
I always say...
Sorry.
Go on.
I mean, that's very true about younger players, but it's also true about senior players. And I think what is very interesting is the second team that Tony Pulis built, like that evolved in '97. So the '98, '99, 2000 team that he built virtually. I know he left before that sustained us 5 years into the championship. They weren't just a team; they were a gang of mates who looked like it was them against the rest of the world, and they'd run through brick walls for each other. But they also had camaraderie. They weren't. It wasn't just a job to them. It looked like it was fun with their friends, and it's interesting to hear that quite a few of them are still friends 25 years later and all that. And I think that if you can ever get that going with senior players as well, you're halfway to doing something, because then when it's 0-0, you're 1-0 down with 20 minutes to go on a Tuesday night, you know, and it's horizontal sleet, they're the ones that are going to dig you out of a hole and get that 1-1 draw with their like scruffy one in the last minute. And you know, everyone wants to win every game, pretty football, win 4-0, win the league. That's not how you get out of League Two very often, or League One for that matter. Of course, you want that essentially for everybody, but it's great to have young players to have it, but you also need the senior pros to buy into it, I think. And I think the best example of that was under the 98-99 side, I'd say. So yeah, it's not just the young players need to do it; they pull their finger out.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there's some unbelievable names in that team. You know, when I think of like obviously Pato, Hesse, you know, Saabs, you know, those sort of players. And you're right. I mean, but most teams will tell you, and most experienced professionals will tell you have to get the dressing room right. So, and who creates that? Well, do you know what? It's the environment you create as a management team, as a club. So I don't just say it's the managers that do that. I think the chairman, the board, you know, you have to become a family, and you have to become integrated into each other and realise that you're all part of the same team. But getting the dressing room right, making sure it's supportive, positive, most players that have been successful will think back to groups that they've played with and go, that dressing room was quality. And I think that's key.
Yeah, so the one thing that I've spoken to a few of the guys from the playoff winning side from 25 years ago, and their bond is so unique, and there's nothing else like it. I just think, they're always speaking to each other and always connected. And ultimately, if you've got a bond like that in the dressing room, it doesn't matter whether you're winning, physically on the pitch, but you're going to be winning in life ultimately as a footballer, because what more could you want than your friends to help you absolutely and lift you up when you are down? Look, I've got to ask you, from your opinion, Darren. Obviously, Gillingham this year, 3 managers in one season is quite a lot. I mean, when you look at the team that Gillingham had at the start of the season, we did well 3 or 4 games there where we won and we were top of the league. But what do you think kind of went wrong? Do you think ultimately it could be that he's lost the dressing room, or just he wasn't getting his tactics across? I mean,
do you know,
it's quite a lot of managers.
Yeah, look, I think when you make a good start like that, very surprising to see a team then drop away kind of quite quickly, is what Gills did. And then I think you then had a good amount of positivity after those first few wins, good amount of confidence, but maybe it was a bit of a false dawn. And I think that then you start to expect to go out and win. And whilst that's nice, you've got to back it up with the prerequisites, what we've just been talking about. And I think at times that didn't happen. Like I said, I haven't seen any full games, seen a lot of highlights, but some of the goals that were conceded weren't great. And I think then the manager then starts to think about tinkering with things. So the shape gets changed slightly, players get changed around, and then doubt starts to creep. Once doubt creeps in, and obviously when John came in, it weren't easy for him because he's picking up a sort of a very desolate group of players. So performances did start to improve with him, but obviously the wins, which he's desperate for, just didn't come along for one reason or another. And you quoted about referees. It's difficult for me to agree with the fact that we can always blame officials when on the pitch. Yeah, and we can blame injuries. Yes, we can. But ultimately, again, how do you get that group back going again? But Gareth's come in again, hasn't had the wins, but what he's instilled is a little bit of confidence that they're not going to get beat. So in the first instance, that's always my philosophy, that let's make sure that we go out there and be hard to beat. But in the same breath, we've got to go down the other end and try and score some goals. So look, he's had a good look at them. That's all I can say. I've seen the retain list. I'm a bit surprised he's got rid of young Jaden, because he scored like 7 goals, and he's come out sort of non-league, a bit raw, I know, but I'm a bit surprised at that one. Not too surprised about some of the others, if I'm honest. But
there's definitely a player in there.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's got a little bit of a blank whiteboard now to try and put together a squad that he believes can challenge for League Two. Presuming that obviously that the chairman and the board are going to support him with that. But you're not going to have gotten a better, more experienced person than Gareth to come in at this stage, I don't think. So, as I say, I've been excited in previous years with Gills, but I'm hoping to see...
I just want to ask Darren what it was like under the previous era when he was young, what Keith Peacock was like at building that, because that team looked like they had a good spirit as well. And obviously there's some marvellous unrepeatable stories from that era. When before social media existed, can we say, adventures that involved Dave Shearer and Terry Cochran and various other people, which I'm not going to say, I'm not going to repeat, but let's just say, did he build a really good, tight-knit group as well?
Yeah, I mean, that was a great crew. I mean, I was a 17-year-old kid, so I was quite new to it. But, yeah, there was some funny shenanigans going on. Obviously, I was too young to be invited, but Wednesdays were sort of their day out. So they used to go and have a few beers, and Cheeky, especially because he was living in digs around the corner, I think, at the time. But I can remember coming back in, because obviously we had baths back in those days at Priestfield. There weren't showers. So we come in, we used to train up at the barracks on the grass up there, and then we'd make our way back to the ground, jump in the bath. And I can remember jumping in the bath, and Derek Hales was sat in the corner with a fag in his hand. And of course, then he got the nudge that Keith was walking down, the manager, the gaffer was walking down the tunnel. So he just put it out in the water, and I'm thinking, I'm trying to have a wash in this. But yeah, so there was lots of funny stories back in those days. Football wasn't quite the same back then. But I've got to say, watching Derek Hales in training, his finishing was an absolute joke. I mean, unbelievable finisher, that guy. And hardly ever trained, but used to go out and would score regularly at some point during that season. Yeah, Keith, I saw him a number of years later, about 20 years later, and he never changed. He's always very supportive, would never forget who you were, would always come and have a chat with you. And he would give you a rollicking if you needed one. I can remember one reserve game that I was playing in and got put through, and I kind of shirked the challenge with a goalkeeper who came steaming out, and he proper ripped my head off at half time. And I was still only a kid, but I deserved it. And in the same breath, I think 2 weeks later, when I had a really good game, he was like, "That's much better from you. That's what I want to see." So, he managed people the right way, and I think as old school managers did back in those days. Do you know what I mean? At the end of the day, there was total respect, certainly from all the players to Keith Peacock, and he respected you back.
That's always what you want to as a player. You always want a manager that's going to respect you and respect your boundaries. Look, I'm going to quickly jump onto asking Eddie. I want to ask you about your unsung hero. And obviously, Glenn Morris won the Player of the Year award. But if you had to give a Player of the Year award to somebody who isn't Glenn Morris for any particular reason, who would be your standout player of this season just gone?
Oh, that's difficult. I'll be honest, right? Like everybody else, I had Morris number 1, McKenzie number 2. Everyone else, no, not really anywhere, because they'd all had spells, shall we say. So no one else had been really consistent. I mean, I'll be honest, Gale's development has shocked me how good he's just come into the team as a young player. Don't want to put too much pressure on him. There's echoes of Steve Bruce about him, but he's very young, obviously. But in terms of the player I'm most excited about, that's him. But everyone's shouting his name from the rooftops. That unsung, I really say a lot of them. I'm a bit grumpy with a lot of them for only putting half a season in, I'll be honest. So I'd struggle really because they weren't unsung. They were more underwhelming at times. When it was a lot of travel this year in League Two, right? We did 10,000 miles. It's like going to Seattle in America or the north of Japan, but just very slowly. If you've been to Barrow, it's like going back to 1973 and you lose there 3-0. You're not in a good mood. We've had a hell of a lot of travel and to not much reward goals-wise. Obviously, we drew quite a lot of away games eventually and we became harder to beat and you could see the effort and everything. But were they thrilling slobber knockers? Not very many of them. Now, I mean, it's sometimes I like to shock people who only watch this era. Like one of our friends has only started watching Gillingham 2 years ago. And so when I say to him, well, in 3 years, consecutive seasons in the 80s, Gillingham scored 100 goals in all competitions. That's 100 a year. Compared to what we've done in the last 3 years, they just they go pale and they go, what? How on earth did that happen? And it's such a shame that it was just before the era of cameras at least catching the goals, because I'd love to see people to see some of the stuff back then. And it's so frustrating now that we're still binary, but yeah, that's where I am at the moment with it. But I mean, like, lots of little players have just had one or two games here and there that I suddenly went, oh, Rose suddenly had a fantastic match. Dax suddenly had a really good game. And other players, Johnny Williams finished the season really well, but what happened to the middle bit, So that's where I am with that. Sorry, I haven't got one.
That's fine. Well, there he was. Glenn Morris, the player of the year. Sorry, go on, Kirrien. Darren, Kirrien's got a question for you.
Go on, mate.
Yeah, so this is from True Blue Jock on X. He's put, always thought players are not trying narrative was quite lazy and is a massive confidence issue. As an ex-pro, does Darren believe that the lack of effort from professional players is a thing?
Well, it shouldn't be, but sometimes it can be conveyed and seen as that, certainly from a fan's perspective. Well, I think it boils down to more than anything. And I think, don't forget now that the manager very, very quickly can see if the players aren't working hard enough, because they've got all these sat-nav now linked to their vests. So if they're not doing the kilometres, they're not doing the yardage, they're not doing the sprints, they can know. I think sometimes you can run around, cover ground. If you're struggling and you're lacking in confidence, you could actually almost go missing in a game. And I think that's what sometimes the fans see. When you're confident, you want the ball, you shout for the ball, you demand it, you talk, you seem to be more passionate. That comes across as somebody that cares, that comes across as somebody that's giving or putting more effort in. If you're not very confident and you're one of those sort of players that thrives on that, then you can actually go missing. And I'm sure that there's been a few Gills players that have done that over the course of this season. So when it's 11v11, it's quite easy to run around and not actually have any sort of impact or involvement in the game. And I've noticed that a lot with players, even at senior level. Working with players in a non-league, that happens as well, and that's transferred across to the rest of the team. So that's where you need your captain, your big players, your leaders in the team to actually, make a difference, change momentum. I mean, Alex Ferguson used to talk to us a lot about Roy Keane and how it could be a tackle that Roy Keane makes, even if it's a bad one, that all of a sudden can strike a little bit of fear and adrenaline into the rest of the team to get the team to play. And that's what sometimes you need when you're having a bad time and you're going through a spell as a group. That's where you need your big players to step up to the mark. Not just your captain. Your captain wears the armband, but certainly him. But there should be others out there helping as well.
Well, yes, absolutely. Talking about players stepping up to the mark, I think it would be definitely rude not to show this remarkable moment from this season. This, obviously, as you all know, is Robbie McKenzie's goal. It's playing a bit slow, but there you go. What a strike that was. But what was even better, I believe, and if we can actually get it to play with some volume.
Bit like Okagbu, who did sleep a little bit there, so never
from our beloved German Gills.
The head. But, unfortunately, was off target by a long way, and it's still 1-0 Walsall. Gills have taken this throw in quickly on the left-hand side. We're trying to get forward. McKenzie looking around forward. He's going to shoot from distance. It's not bad. Oh! And McKenzie scores an absolute rocket of a goal! My goodness me! That's going to be goal of the season. I bet that. Wow! What a finish! Oh! We needed something like that. Oh!
Celebration of the season goes to Reece.
I had to turn the sound down then.
Yeah, apology. Well, what a finish that was. Eddie, I'm sure you were there. I'm sure you were at the game. Did you know it was in the moment it left his boot?
I was right behind it in the second row. You can see me going wibble in the goal celebrations, and it really just swerved through the air, and it was sort of in all the way. So that was a great goal for a reward to go to Walsall on a Tuesday night. It was my 60th ever game watching Gillingham Walsall. 37 home, 23 away. That's a lot. That's a lot of Walsall Gillingham games. We deserved it. But I thought great goal. But also, what was great about that was the first moment of the turnaround. That is, the players came running towards the away Gillingham fans and nearly jumped into the crowd. And you suddenly realise this is the start of rebuilding that link. And it was important for that as well. So it was a double good moment for me. That really was a mental sort of break with the past. Right, they're out there now. And he's just done that. Let's enjoy the moment and let's start and encourage them and help their confidence, which has been battered and all this. So it meant two things to me. So yeah, not quite one of Carl Elsie's efforts, but back in the day, but it was still not bad.
It was an amazing strike. Before we go tonight, obviously it would be rude, I believe, to not honour the man currently on screen, Mr. Max Amar. 439 appearances for the Gills over two spells. First joined from QPR in 2014. A great servant, I believe, for the club. He was also sometimes the man to take most of the stick from us. Yes, I said us, me included in the crowd. But it would be rude not to celebrate Max Amar. Max Amar, 439 appearances for the Gills. Guys, thank you both so much for coming on. I've got to ask you one last question each. First off, Eddie, this is an impossible question. We've not seen any squad lists. We don't know who we're playing first or last game of the season. But what position are Gillingham finishing in the league next year?
Right, before that, I'll just say about Max Amar, right, because you've just said thank you and all that. His first spell, pretty reasonable, lower division. I wasn't that thrilled when he came back from Bristol Rovers, right? And so I'm not his greatest fan, but I felt he became a lightning rod for criticism of the general squad. A bit like how Maguire and then Rashford at Man U became the lightning rod. So if people are upset about something, he became the shortcut of, oh, well, he epitomises everything that's wrong. Now, sometimes I don't think he was a great leader, but he was a solid League One, League Two player. And he I felt like he was unduly put upon in terms of it's not always his fault. And like towards the end of his Gillingham career, he wasn't the worst player on the pitch, but he was just used as a lightning rod. So I'm sort of like double-edged sword. Like I think it was a mistake coming back from Bristol Rovers, but on the other hand, I felt it was unfair how he was treated, if you see what I mean, on both those things. As for next season, it will see who we sign. Look, we have to score goals. Our defence was pretty solid all season, even at the lowest points. And the last couple of months, we looked, especially with four at the back and not trying to do little short passes, looked very solid. And like the display at Port Vale was as good as the display at Notts County earlier in the season. And we put, the Gillingham team put their bodies on the line, blocked everything, the chasing, the harrying, stopped them really having shots. And so that is there. But obviously, the elephant in the room for more than 3 years now is scoring some goals. And you'll have to ask a magician because we have tried everything from who we've signed and changing formations.
There's some feedback going on somewhere.
But we've got to sign someone who can score a goal or get people confident enough that are in the club to score more goals. Because we need to score more than 60 goals, not 46, to have a chance of going up. And that's with a strong defence.
Absolutely. Darren, then we're going to finish on with you and a nice hypothetical for you. Tomorrow morning, you get a phone call, ring, 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 and it's Gareth Ainsworth, and he says, Darren, I need some advice. What do I get? How do I make this team become a Gillingham football team? What do you tell him?
I'd say, let me just get a number for you. and I'll pass you on to. No, I'm joking. Look, I would just tell him just to absorb the feeling of the football club, the local community, understand what it means to the fans, understand what it means to the people who work for the club, all the way through. You know, for me, the culture, the work ethic, etc., is really important. I think I agree with Eddie to a certain degree. The fans like to see a fast-paced, high-pressing team that likes to get the ball forwards quickly, get the ball into good areas. I think he's that sort of coach, if I'm being brutal. So I don't think I need to tell him that. I think he knows that. But certainly at home, I'd be saying to him, you've got to get after people, and you've got to give the boys the opportunity to take the reins off, go and express themselves, go and enjoy the game. But they're going to have to run around a lot at home for certain.
Can I just add?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I know it's very early on, but I think one of the things that I like about Ainsworth is he seems to get us. He gets Gillingham fans. He seems to get what we want and why we're there. Now, any manager can come and say all the right things and tickle our tummies, yeah? But I think he does actually get it. The last manager who really got it and said it was Mad Dog. Now, sometimes I felt that was a bit contrived, along with his red trousers, but he did sort of get it and get the fans on side. Basically, if you've got the fans on side, right, you can have a couple of stinking matches and they're not going to boo you off because you've got enough of a well of goodwill that in the bank to not be instantly just dogpiled. And I think that Gillingham fans have become a little bit too quick to criticise, but I understand why, because the frustration's been for a few years now. But if you're a manager, therefore, you need to build up some goodwill, a well of goodwill. So therefore, inevitably, this is a low-scoring sport and things drop on your head from a great height. Then when things go a bit wobbly at some point, you have some goodwill there and you're not just completely slaughtered because you need to keep the confidence up. I mean, people forget, even in the glorious era under Tony Pulis, we had 2 long runs without wins in the league and people were moaning and everything. And people seem to forget that it wasn't just an absolute linear route of triumph. There were some ups and downs there. And I feel like people forget that sometimes. And so I think he gets us. Also, I think the style of football will just be less tippy-tappy. I mean, Pep Guardiola, right, has bored the arse off a lot of people for the last few years. He's great for a Man City fan, but it's influenced lots of other people to play out from the back to no effect. I love it when the team gives away the ball in the 6-yard box and concedes a goal. I say good, because the quicker that gets knocked on the head, the better. I mean, just in terms of entertainment as a neutral, I don't want to see that. It's a bit bloodless. I want end-to-end. I want teams to be able to mix it up. So pass nicely, obviously. They have to all be able to do that. But sometimes go long, sometimes do individual runs. I mean, I know it's all stats driven and people say, oh, you don't score from corners anymore and don't do long shots. But actually, occasionally you do need to do a long shot like at Walsall. And sometimes you do have to just put it in the bloody mixer. And I feel like people have become wedded to one style of football, which doesn't suit all. And it didn't suit us the last 3 years, which is why we're still in League 2. There you go.
Well, let's keep our fingers tightly crossed that next year the sleeping dragon doesn't ignore the snooze button, actually wakes up, and we will be, hopefully, this time next year, League 1 bound. Guys, I think that is a great way and great time to sign off and come to the end of our me and Kirrien's first show together. I don't think it went too badly. Do you guys?
Yeah, no,
That's
good.
Thanks
I
for having me
didn't
on.
swear.
Anytime you need me, give us a shout.
That is brilliant. Thank you so much, Darren. Thank you so much, Eddie, as well, for you guys both coming on. Kirrien, I had fun. I hope you had fun. We're definitely doing this again, right? Yeah.
I'll consider it over the close season. That's your audition out the way.
That's my audition out the way. Brilliant. Guys, I just want to say a massive thank you. Kirrien, I know you wanted to say something just before we sign off. Then we've got a little outro, a couple of videos that you guys have sent in, some photos of the season, all set to a great song, I must say.
So yeah, again, I just want to say, Eddie and Darren, thank you very much for joining us today. It's been fantastic. And congratulations to Josh on his promotion with Boreham Wood, beating Maidstone United in the playoff finals. Always a good one, that. Yeah, thumbs up from Eddie. And I just want to thank David, my former co-host, for all the help he's given me over the last season, from recent German Gills show, for all his advice and support, and for his videos, letting us use his videos today. But to Chris at the View from the Medway for his support as well, and also to all the Gillingham fans I've spoken to this season. And we will be back next season. We've got some. If I'm speaking out of turn, I'm sure Matt will cut me off here. But we've got some great guests lined up for the start of next season. So if anyone wants to join us in our fan slot, to join us with a couple of former pros and a couple of former coaches, I believe.
I could give a hint to the first our first sort of guest we've got coming on. They're the only Gillingham player to have received, as far as I know, an England cap.
So there's the clue to who's coming on.
There's your clue.
Dun 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 dun.
We have spoken about him tonight, and I'm very much looking forward to that, because he was one of my favourite players when I was younger. So yeah, but thank you very much, everyone, for joining us, and have a lovely evening.
Should I go or should I stay? The game was over, no more time to play. I gazed around and saw no one had gone. The Gills were still singing their song.